Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Dr. Liz Jenkins with drlizcoaching.com. And thank you, thank you for joining me again. We're inside couples conflict. And yesterday I was talking or trying to share a little bit about where we get our ideas, really, our examples for fighting, effective and not effective, from family of origin, earlier relationships, friendships growing up, um, watching folks, maybe not having a place for feedback after you have a fight with your very, very bestest friend and you're in second grade and maybe you didn't show up so well, but there isn't anyone at home or in your world that says, hey, you could do better, or let's here the two of you guys, let's sort it out. And so as we grow up, we do our very best with what we have. And so here to really, really no shame, no blame, release. We're just going to figure out some of the things that are unique to you, unique to your partner or your spouse, and unique to your relationship. What works, we keep. What doesn't work, we refine. And before I launch into a little bit more about um, some more about the friends and prior relationship styles and kind of what's going on with you in your relationship, I want to share an example of one of my clients I think may illustrate some of the different layers that really show up what's inside a couple's conflict. Okay? Yeah, good. Okay. So Matt and Georgette, but she goes by Georgie, came to me several years ago, and they were completely confused and on the brink of literally saying, "We made a huge mistake. We need to cut our losses now before we have kids, before we get further into this thing called marriage." Okay, a little backstory on um, Matt and Georgie. Um, they had started off meeting in college, kind of traditional thing. And, you know, they had the little bits of their betrayals and, they would break up and they'd get back together again and they would decide, no, it's too early. We don't need to be seeing each other so seriously. And so Matt and Georgie would sort of pause the relationship while they were at college and then they would resume. And finally, they decided, no, we really have this thing. We really like each other. We have fights, but we get over it, right? And their fights were some of the typical stuff. Hey, um, you know, I saw you flirting with that girl, or why are you hanging out with that guy? And where were you yesterday? And, those kinds of things, as well as some differences about religion, some differences about finances. But again, they were still really in this cocoon type of thing called college and college students. And so they started to have their fights and get them resolved in that style. So they go on to graduate, and Matt goes on to get his own apartment. And Georgie is, rooming with another friend, and both starting the beginning of their careers, and they're continuing to date, and they are exclusive now. And so pretty soon, Georgie is finding that she's spending more time over at his apartment than at hers. Okay, very logical, frugal folks. They said, "Hey, it makes sense. Let's just make it official. You just move in here, and we'll just co-share the apartment." Now, during the time that Matt had his own apartment and Georgia was sharing, he continued to have friends over very similar to what he had when he was in his dorm room. That there would be the Thursday night, poker game, and the guys would sit around and, drink and talk and play cards until well into the wee hours of the morning. Didn't bother anybody in the dorm, so to speak, just because his dorm mate was also part of the poker game. And when they were in their apartment, even though Georgie was there, it didn't seem to be a problem. She either went and occupied herself in the bedroom and watched TV, or came out and had handled snacks to everybody, or you know went and had her own girls' night type of thing. And so these kinds of things that they had done, or activities they had done in college life and dorm life, were still showing up in the newly apartment life, newly single, graduated, got your careers kind of thing. Again, no complaints, no issues. Everybody's fine. They make time for themselves. They make time for this. Okay. So then it goes where they get a little bit more serious, real serious, and he proposes. And it's like, this is wonderful. Now there's a flurry of wedding plans and what are we going to do and what's it going to look like. And they're really starting to dream forward. What would they be doing? How long would they be saving? And how fast would they save to get their own house? Right. And then they get married and they're still in the apartment. And this is where the problems start happening. These are where the conflicts started happening that they couldn't seem to fix and they couldn't seem to resolve. Um, the poker games were still happening every Thursday. Only now, Georgie was getting frustrated. She wanted them done and out by 11. She didn't want to wake up to find one of the buddies asleep on the couch of their apartment as a married couple, drunk. She didn't want to get up and start seeing the beer bottles or their food, even if they weren't clean. She wanted to wake up to just the two of them in their apartment as a married couple. That was one of the conflicts. And had Matt just scratching his head, thinking, "What's the big deal?" It was fine before. Now all of a sudden, you want to control my life. So now we're getting this defensiveness, we're getting this griping and then arguing. And she's telling him to choose them or me, and he's saying, "What happened to you? You completely changed." And that's just one example. There was other things about finances and the rate of spending and what was okay to spend and what wasn't, because what they hadn't done is really start understanding and talking about these big ticket things, because you know what, most of us don't know that at different phases in our life, at different spots, these roles, these unconscious examples, subconscious examples of how it should be, are starting to bubble up. Georgie wanted to get out of the apartment fast. She wanted to have a big nest egg plus a down payment, but she did not see herself married in an apartment and certainly did not see herself having children in that apartment. Matt was quite fine with that. It's no low, it's a great way to save money. We can power down. When we have kids, they'll be little. They won't need a playground or a yard for, a year or so. So let's just stay here, economize. But what they also didn't talk about was what was considered necessary and frivolous spending. So you can start to see that their early part of their married life was they were experiencing conflicts that they had never thought would happen, and no systems or tools or strategies for managing them. They didn't even know what they're fighting about, except that she was no longer fun and nice to be with, and he was irresponsible and still wanted to be a kid, kind of thing. That's sort of what the way the lingo went. But when they came to me, we started chatting. All right, we started chatting. And like yesterday, I was talking about, where does your fighting styles show up? Where did you, what did you see your family, your friends? What did you practice on with your friends and early relationships? So we started showing up saying, really about what was behind the conflict. When you say you don't want to have, when you say that she's no fun anymore, what do you mean by that? And what did you expect her to be in a married role? And what did she expect him? And what were some of the unspoken, maybe invisible things? They started talking about it, looking into it. What did they feel was the right way, or what was they feel was the role? And honestly, we started with, what does it mean to be married? What does it look like to you? What do you expect your husband? What do you expect your wife to do, to act, to look, to show up? What do we expect with money? So we had to have some of those hard conversations and those aha moments. And what we found is that Georgie, in her mind, tolerated but never liked the poker parties. But she felt it wasn't her role or her responsibility to speak up about that. She was supposed to be the nice, easygoing girlfriend. And when they became husband and wife, she was in equal power, equal thing, and that stuff would stop. Okay, right? Um, and he thought that she would be quite fine because she never complained about it. She never talked about the poker or wanting to get out of the apartment at any particular time. So when we are having a fight or conflict, guys, we are not always fighting about what we think we're fighting about. And I want you to start exploring yourself and your roles about what you feel is are the shoulds. They should know this because that's what George said. I should know this. You should know that that's the thing of the past. Those are just kid things. We're adults now. Okay. So we want to go back and think about some of those shoulds. What do we think are the rules or our dreams? What in our mind did we think it looked like? And I would love for you to start mapping out those so that then we go further into inside the conflict um, cycle and dynamics. You can start to see why you or your spouse or partner are showing up angry, hurt, distant, why there's certain repetitive themes that we keep fighting about. For Matt and Georgie, they started ramping up about Tuesday. She started getting, irritable. Wednesday was just like, and she pretty much gave him the silent treatment on Thursday. Why? Because she was frustrated and expected him to know that the poker game should not be happening, especially at their house, especially till the wee hours of the morning. They had to get up and go to work the next day. They had a home together. They were married. This is not what married couples do. So you can hear the judgments, you can hear her expectations that she hasn't shared with him. Okay. So I would love for you to look inside your conflict. Okay. Look inside your ideal and your expectations for how you should show up in whatever dynamic you're in, whatever your relationship or marriage and then how do you expect them? What are your expectations for them? And then we're going to be able to start identifying the triggers where you feel like they aren't showing up or where we haven't even explored and talked to them about what your needs are or what your dreams are or how far off track we are or how on track we are because we want to celebrate the wins. There's probably many, many situations where you guys are both in alignment. They're showing up, you're showing up, and we want to celebrate that. So have a wonderful day. You got some homework, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye bye.